folks. Welcome to one more edition of Politics and Run. I'm Egberto with your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Please stick around because it's going to be good. Anyhow, how's everybody doing? We have a great show. Hey, I heard the truckers are going to be here in D.C. They're going to be coming up to muck the things up. They want to close down the traffic. They want to do all those kinds of things. Well, let them go ahead and do it. Let them cause the panic in the streets. Let those guys take responsibility for the ones that are holding things up. Who really cares? Who really cares? But you know what? I don't care about those people who want dissension. I care about my peeps. My peeps. How are you guys doing? Eric Hayes, how are you doing? Deb Denny, she says, lurking again, sick in bed. My dear, beautiful Deb Denny. What is wrong? I want to hear what's wrong with you, my dear friend, so that we can send you some positive affirmations. You know, we believe in that stuff. Positive affirmations to get you going. Nanette Bird Smith says, hi all. Hello, Nanette Bird Smith. How are you doing today? AVQ. He went to the dentist. But you know what? He's still here. He got back in time. Welcome aboard, brother AVQ. And it looks like Eric Hayes wants to control a few things here. Migraine headaches. Hey, you know what works for me? That super extra strength Tylenol. Actually, you know what? That's true. That's not true. That's not true. I use Tylenol when I'm here at my daughter's house, but I normally do Excedrin because that has the Tylenol in it, which is the acetaminophen. It also has, I think it's aspirin, and it also has caffeine. That three combination usually knocks my headache off the rails pretty darn quickly. So you may want to try the Excedrin or some permutation thereof. They have those in generic forms now. You don't have to go out buying those name brand pieces of crap, you know what I mean? All right, Eric Hayes says, question, if the whole country moves towards EV, how in the world will grids handle that load? Along with homes, etc. Home, especially in Texas, without fossil, you can't even support it. All right. I think you asked me that directly in my chat, and I think I gave you an acceptable answer. But since you didn't accept the answer in the chat, my brother Eric Hayes, I think it's good that you put it out there so that I can answer it, because, you know, I have an article written by the guy that was on yesterday, brother Harvey Wasserman, who talked about we don't even need nuclear energy. We have enough green energy. And he said, until we see every rooftop covered, that's wasted energy. Let's get easy about that now. Here's your problem. The industry has taught you to limit your thinking. It has taught all of us to try to limit our thinking. What does it want us to do? It wants us to forget that every year, let's go to Texas. You brought up Texas. Texas is very hot in Houston. So we have a lot of energy that's wasted in Houston. Is it hard? The amount of, it takes, you know how long for a nuclear plant to get online? It takes a very long time for a nuclear plant to get online. Okay, so let's start there. Now, if we assume that or we know that it takes a long time for that nuclear plant to get online, imagine if we invested that time in technologies that we can use right now, whether that be solar plus batteries, right? And you talk about how can we all use EV? What he means by EV is electric vehicles. It's not hard. If every house is populated with solar panels, if every home, if where we have the ability to have wind farms, we have it. If we build out, just like Google has done in California, if we build out the grid with batteries, etc., it can be done. EVs, electric vehicles. It can be done if we have the will to do it. The problem is we have oil interests who doesn't want to see electric vehicles because it means that we lose oil, the sale of oil. We have many other vehicles that they don't want to use oil. They don't want us to do anything that will usurp the position of oil, will usurp the position of nuclear, etc. We have to think outside of the box, but more than thinking outside of the box, we just have to think. You know, Harvey Wasserman, in his article that's listed in the blog for the Post today, points out that we are going to be spending millions of, it takes millions of years for some of these chemicals to decay. So why would we want, again, why would we want to invest in that? Okay, so here we go. He continues. It was meant to be an obvious answer, and policy doesn't prove reality of it. Just look at the landscape this country is in. And like you said, there is no shortage of energy, and yet we as a country have to import it and to subject pricing to the world market by what happens globally. We don't have to and can set our own price protecting American market. Again, I believe what you just said, Eric, is correct. What you just said is correct. If we didn't have the fallacy of markets, we could do what you just said. I want to read your line, because the same people that fight us when we talk about there being a mythical market is what you're saying we should do. And this is a dichotomy that we have between thinking, everybody being intelligent, and us just parroting what the right wing or conservatives would tell us. I want to read what Eric just said, because Eric is absolutely correct. Here's what he said. We don't have to, and we could set our own price and protect the American market. Wow. If only we could. But the people you support, the plutocracy, will not allow that to happen. Offshoring makes that an impossibility. All right? Everything that you think about what they call the free market, the capitalist market, prevents what you just said there. You're like me. You believe we should be able to protect our market. And if we build things in America, we can be in America for all practical purposes, given the resources that we have, pretty damn self-contained, and not have to worry about the crisis in Iraq, the crisis in Afghanistan, the crisis in Ukraine, the crisis around the world. We have the wherewithal to do it if we chose to. But our plutocracy says otherwise. They say we'll manufacture overseas. We will have just-in-time inventory. That means we offshore and bring product in, which put us at the behest of other countries, other problems around the world. So, Eric, when I talk about the right making people not think straight, I am saying you just proved that you can think, because you said it. We could we have enough oil for ourselves for however much we need, for however much longer we need it. We have enough oil here. But you know what? A lot of oil that is made here, that is drilled here, is sent overseas because they can get a better price. That's the mythical market. That is that is capitalism for you. All right? All those ills, all those things that you are against is what I'm talking about. And you prove that when we think as a collective, when we think in the interest of our people, we would actually get things done. So Eric, believe it or not, you believe the things that I believe. You just choose when the right tells you to believe something else to believe it. All right, let's continue. Batteries, right. Nope, we have natural gas, but that is plentiful. Again, notice what you just said now. We have natural gas that's plentiful. Yes, it is. But because there is natural gas, do we burn it? No. Do you burn your farts because it's there to burn? No. Let me explain. Not because you can burn something or use something, you do. We don't need to use it. Batteries, yes. Why batteries? Because batteries is a back-end store for solar, wind, and drought. Okay? That's the back end store. That's that's the purpose of batteries. And that is how we make renewable energy available whether the sun is shining, the wind is blowing or not. Then you come back and you say, but that is expensive. It is only expensive in a capitalist society that prices capital and does not price everything else. Right? In other words, why are batteries expensive and why is oil cheap? And is there a way to reverse that? Yes, we could take all the subsidies away from oil. We could charge all the destruction that burning carbon causes if we place that cost on oil and gas. There would be more than enough money to build out renewables. Let's give an example. When you pay $2 a gallon for gas, I know it's a little bit now, but if you pay $2 a gallon for gas, do you really think gasoline costs $2 a gallon? No, it does not. If you put in the cost of burning the gas, the benzene that's left in the ground, the climate changes that it causes, if you add all that cost in and the destruction that causes, all of us pay for the hurricanes, all of us pay for the cancers, all of us pay for the healthcare costs of burning these dirty fuels. We pay for it. We don't pay it at the gallon of gas. We pay it when we pay health insurance. We pay it when we pay to clean up the environment. We pay in taxes to do all these things. Now, suppose we got honest and decided that we were going to pay the cost as it occurs. Then a gallon of gas may cost $10 a gallon. I don't know, maybe $8 a gallon, because the excess of that would go into paying health care for those people that all this gas is messing with. It'll also go to pay all the what we call externalities. But you see, you have not learned to think that way. You have learned to think that the oil companies have the right to kill you and make a profit. As opposed to, if you are burning their product, then you can sue them for the damage their product has caused to humanity, to people, to your lungs, to everything else. You see? A different way of thinking, isn't it? But it's a moral way of thinking. It's the correct way of thinking. It's the economical way of thinking. Bruce says, yes, we can use our own fossil fuels, not others, Egberto. Is that what I mean? Yes, that's what you mean. But that's not how a market economy, a capitalist market economy works. You can want to use our own fuel, but that's not how it works. In a capitalist society, you have people who bid on that oil, and some of that oil would be bidded away. Again, that is what you support. You are the one who support throwing our local oil on the market. You believe in the not the free enterprise, you believe in the free market, the free capitalist market. That's what you believe. That's what you told us. And that is what prevents what you want, keeping our oil in America. You see? Bruce says, the Russians sold cars running on compressed gas for many years. If only we had the way to make compressed gas from methane. We could. We could. You know, put a hose in the butt of every cow. No, I'm kidding. AVQ says renewables are cheaper, watt for watt, than any fossil fuels. And the only reason we still only have fossil fuels is that we are subsidizing fossil fuel by $6 trillion a year. And it could actually be more than that if we add in things like healthcare and that sort of stuff. Rose Williams says, hi everyone. Bruce Pollard, welcome aboard. Melanie Keelan says, I grew up in Texas and got sick of the oil campaign in the 70s. I hear you, girl. I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. Melanie Keelan, welcome aboard to Politics Done Right. Tom C. says, greetings from the Michigan Mitten. If Americans would buy EVs instead of gas-guzzling cars and trucks, we would no longer be gouged by foreign oil producers and inflation will go down and we wouldn't have to fight the Russians. All right, let's see. Eric Hayes, Egberto, I'm thinking in reality-based selling of excess is fine. Again, you don't a capitalist market doesn't work on excesses, on selling off excesses. In other words, we keep all of this in America and whatever is left we give away. No, that's not how capitalism works. Capitalism puts the product on the market and the highest bidder takes it. Okay? Whether they had the result of the externalities or not. That is a market you support, Mr. Hayes. Yvette Avery Herod, our union activist, welcome aboard. Bruce Fowler said we should burn our flatulence to prevent 30 times greenhouse effect. I hear you, brother. Eric Hayes says batteries are poison just as fossils. God is all bad, not all economical. Again, let's get real. You can control a battery. You can control where carbon, methane, and mercury in aciduous form gets into the air. That's the difference. Huge difference. We can take all the pieces of the batteries and recycle them, and the parts that we can't recycle, we can pump it into cement and do something else with it. You can't do that with all the crap that's burned in the millions of cars that are running off of it. So what you always want to do, in technical terms, what you want to do is you want to be able to localize where you have bad stuff, and where you have good stuff, you keep it out there, right? That's all you got to do. All right, let's see. Carl Cox says fracking is bad. The easiest way to get natural gas, methane gas, pollutes underground water. That's very true. Rose Williams gave us a hemp battery. Hemp battery direct. That should be interesting. Hemp battery. What is it? Battery made from marijuana. Okay. We also have nope. You will pay 3 to 6 now, and after the crap out government is doing foreign policy decision, we pay nearly. Oh Lord. You can take the water to the cow or to the horse, but you can't ask the horse to drink it. Eric, at some point in time, you're going to have to decide if you want to think on your own or you want to have others think for you. I just gave you irrefutable facts. It's not debatable what I just told you. Okay? You can look it up or whatever you want. You won't even have any of your guys. If I were to, first of all, I wouldn't get on their stations because they won't want to argue with me because they will lose. It's not only arguing with me, it's arguing with anybody that has this position. They won't argue or debate because they can't win, period. You have to choose if you will continue to allow yourself to be hoodwinked by a lot of people. They're not dumb, they're smart because they can hoodwink you. They're smart. Okay? All right, let's see. Yes, we can all afford 40K of EV, and on 2,000 mile trip, you'll spend 7 hours waiting to charge it. Again, limited thinking. That's not how it would work. All right? What will work is whenever we have standardized on batteries, just like right now you change out gasoline and the gasoline is gone to a station, in the long run, we'll have the same thing with batteries. You'll just go into a station and you'll give them your battery and they'll give you a new battery. They're just like any other gas station. All of that will be worked out in the long run, okay? But we have to build out the infrastructure. Nanette Bird says audio and visual is out of sync. It's going out and in of sync from what I've seen. I don't know exactly. I think, let me see what my, yeah, I don't see a lot of drop packets. So, I mean, it's going in and out, in and out, in and out, but we'll see. All right, let's see what else we got here. Anyone else tired of Eric Hayes' willful ignorance? I come back tomorrow. I'll come back tomorrow. No, don't leave. I have the, let me tell you, AVQ, I have somebody special for you. Somebody that talks a lot of sense. We have the lieutenant, the guy that's going to be the most powerful person in Texas. The next lieutenant governor of Texas. So let's go ahead and play Brother Mike Collier, my neighbor, who is running for, will be the Democratic candidate for lieutenant governor in Texas. And if you know anything about Texas, you know that the lieutenant governor is the most powerful office in Texas. So let's go ahead and talk to Brother Mike Collier. Welcome to another edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Today, we are honored to have the next Lieutenant Governor of Texas, who is Mike Collier, Democrat. Mike, welcome to Politics and Right. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you, my friend? Always
I
good to
am.
see you, Egberto.
It's always great to see you. Let me tell you, Mike, first of all, I'm excited for this race. I'm excited for the entire slate. And more than ever, I think the pundits, with regards to how the party will do, have it all wrong because I don't think they know that we have people like you running. So, first of all, tell us a little bit about who Mike Collier is.
Well, that's first of all, that's very kind of you, Egberto. You might recall for your listeners, I want everybody to know this. I woke up one day so angry at Texas Republicans. I knew nobody in politics. And I Googled Kingwood Democrats and found one Egberto Willies and said, Egberto, my name is Mike Collier and I want to come to one of your meetings. I want to meet some Democrats. I am so unhappy with Texas politics. And you have been so welcoming and warm and friendly from the very beginning. My political journey starts with you, my friend, and I'm always so glad to see you.
Well, let me just say one thing, Senor Collier. You have, I mean, it all emanates from you because you're a special guy. And I think I've told you that a million times. And that is, you are the one guy I think who can really start this new revolution on the top of the ticket in Texas. You have the right pedigree, you have what's necessary to do it. So, again, tell us about who you are because
I
Texas need
appreciate
to
that.
know who you are.
Yeah, well, thank you, Egberto. I'm coming out of the business world to do this. I'm a certified public accountant in my professional life. I joke as an auditor, I get lied to for a living. My job is to keep big, powerful, wealthy people honest. And that's what I do for a living. I think it'd be very useful in Texas. And my clients are in the energy industry, and I'm right in the transition mode. I get hired because clients call me and say, Mike, help me with a project. And it used to be that it was oil and gas companies calling me. And now it's power and utility and battery and wind and solar companies calling me. And I know that space well. And that's a huge issue. We have to fix the grid. We have to address climate change aggressively in the state. And what I do for a living is solve complicated problems in an honest way, in a way that's fair for all the parties involved. That's precisely my ambition as it relates to state politics. And we have a lot of problems and we have a lot of people hurting. And a lot of it comes down to, is policy in this state fair? Is it fair for everyone? And for example, as I run for lieutenant governor, the most powerful position in the state, I'm not going to take any money from the corporate PACs because we know that it is not fair. So often, policy is not fair because we know who they work for. They meaning the lieutenant governor, and it's not us. And so, if we have a lieutenant governor who's independent, who's focused on fair and smart and wise policy, and goes into communities and hears that people are suffering, and what can we do to help them, and where does state policy take us in that regard, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, fix the grid, criminal justice reform. We could talk about all of these things. That's the lieutenant governor that I hope to be. And Texans seem to be responding to me. I ran against Dan Patrick 4 years ago and almost beat him. And now we're going to beat him this time.
I think you will. You know, it's interesting because that's what I've always admired about you, and that is that you are able to listen to everybody, no matter what part of the spectrum politically they stand up, because you realize one of the important things, and that is we're all Texans, we're all Americans, and therefore everybody needs to be listened to. So what I want to the way I want to start this is I want to first ask you, when you become lieutenant governor, what is the first thing that you're going to do? You know, you gave a litany of things that you want to that's a problem in Texas. Where are we going to start?
Yeah, so in a broad sense, the power of the lieutenant governor is to set the agenda. And the Senate works on whatever the lieutenant governor says we need to work on. And all you have to do is look at what the last lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick, the guy on his way out, look what he did. One of his agenda items was to cancel a woman's right to choose, right? He set that agenda and he achieved it through a very unconstitutional law with vigilante, and it's wrong. So this lieutenant governor is going to set the agenda that I'm going to set is to reverse those policies that are bad policies, reverse the policies as to a woman's right to choose, because I believe a woman does have a right to choose. Texans agree with me on this. Lieutenant governor is going to say, make it so that people can, in fact, vote, make it easy for people to vote, participate in democracy. Set the agenda so that we fix the damn grid, set the agenda so that we deal honestly with criminal justice reform, set the agenda so that we're working on legalizing marijuana, which I think would be very good and very important for the state. So there's one thing you do, which is to set the agenda that is pro-Texan. And then a lot of other things fall underneath that. And we do have to accomplish quite a lot. It's a big and complicated state, and we've been under the thumb of a zealous regime who have done a lot of really bad things to us policy-wise, and we have to reverse those.
Now, interestingly, many of our Republican brothers and sisters, and I really differentiate between our Republican brothers and sisters, the voters versus the politicians. Because the voters, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, they're all good people. What we have to concentrate on is what the politicians have done to us. In our rural areas, Yoakum, Texas, all these other parts of Texas that we can talk about, we have started to see, or not started, we've been seeing hospitals close, all these major issues with healthcare. Even though Texas has not thousands, not millions, but billions of dollars sitting on the table that we can use to make Texans healthy. What are you going to do about that?
Well, if you start with the fundamental proposition that healthcare is a basic human right, then we're in a very rich nation, a very rich state within a very rich nation. We certainly can afford it. Healthcare is a basic human right. Do we or do we not as Texans agree with that? I believe that we do, Egberto. And you mentioned drawing a distinction between Republicans as our neighbors and the politicians. I do believe that the majority of Texans believe it's a fundamental human right. So then the debate, therefore, is only what's the most effective and fair way to achieve access to everybody to health care. That's where the debate should be. Now, there's a couple of steps that we need to take in the state right away. There's a low-hanging fruit, expanding Medicaid. It's right there for the reach. 38 other states have done it. There's no reason why Texas shouldn't. It's ready to go. It's a simple up or down vote in the Senate. It's the work of 15 minutes. If we had a lieutenant governor that said, we're going to vote on this thing, the vote would be yes. Even Republicans, I believe, would vote for yes, because the vast majority of Texans believe that to be the case. That will help with hospitals closing. Then the next step is, let's make sure that we deal with hospitals closing. Let's make sure that we have broadband so that you have telemedicine projected into places where you don't have a specialist, but you need specialist care. Then let's pivot and let's talk about the cost of healthcare, because there's an awful lot of middlemen that aren't making people healthier. They aren't inventing new drugs, but they're making themselves quite rich. So let's smoke that out so that our money is done efficiently and so people can afford healthcare. Those are the steps that we need to be taking, and Texans support that, including Republicans. It is not partisan. It's just good sense. There are reasons why the partisan politicians won't go anywhere near that. And this is the thesis of my campaign and my aspiration in politics is the Republicans have a very, very small base that they pander to win their primary and then to win their general. What percentage of Texans is that base? It's small, Egberto. Maybe 15% of Texans. They are the ones that are driving policy. The rest, the other 85% of us, look at that policy and say, what are you guys thinking? And when we release ourselves from the grip of that 15% by having real political competition, then all of a sudden the majority of Texans are saying, look, what you're doing is not smart. Let's be smart and let's live our values.
Now, I have been concerned for some time here in Texas in that I see and I don't know, I don't want to point fingers, let's say, at the party or anything of that nature, but I feel like we are not grabbing, I see you doing it, but I don't see a lot of folks grabbing the bull by the horns and putting it out there, just like you've articulated about healthcare, just like you've articulated about the grid, just like you've articulated about the justice system. You're coming out and saying, this is what I want to do. You're giving an assertive message. I have too often watching the debates around the state, seeing people taking a defensive posture when they really should be on the offensive. We want to do what's right by Texans. Your thoughts?
Well, I certainly agree with you. And I would say one of the problems of getting elected statewide as a Texas Democrat is that we have no cumulative knowledge and experience of winning because it's been 30 years.
Right.
So each candidate basically is starting with a clean piece of paper and figuring it out as he or she goes. And they go to a different place. It just so happens that that's the fabric that I'm made of. In my
Right.
life, in my professional life, if you go into a board of directors and say, you fellas have a problem, you better tell them what you think the solution is. Otherwise, they'll laugh you out of the room. So it just happens to be in my nature to campaign this way, and it just happens to be working. And if I just happen to win, then I think you'll see that it offer up for many, many other candidates, any one of whom can do this, this is the prescription for success in the state. Now, I'm not smart enough to have designed this. I'm just being myself. The authentic Mike is all about solving problems and attacking these guys. We will define this race. This race will not be defined for me. I'm not going to play defense. They're in charge, and they're the ones that are screwing up. I'm going to hit them. I'm going to hit them where they're hurting people. And I do believe I'm going to win, Egberto. And of course, I have a lot of work to do. But when I do, then you'll see other statewide candidates say, okay, here's a formula. Here's a formula that works. Once we have a formula, once we have cumulative knowledge and experience, you'll see Democrats campaigning that way,
Well, you
whether
see,
it's state or local.
and that is important because they've destroyed the grid. They've destroyed the healthcare system for all but those who have a lot of money. They have right now there is an increase in crime. I will not call it a crime wave because if you look at the numbers, that's not what the numbers tell you. But there is an increase in crime, and what I find is that what we should do is explain what the genesis of crime is and how you're going to solve it because you know what the genesis is, as opposed to saying, I am going to just lock people up. And I think that's what I've been hearing from you. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, there's a crime. There is crime. It's higher than it was. It's a concerning trend. I think everybody ought to be focused like a laser beam on this because people in their communities, they want to feel safe in their communities. And there's so many elements to it. Where does the state get involved? One thing the state can do is deal with jobs and poverty.
Right.
Jobs and poverty and infrastructure. And so that's a very important education. I mean, the state has to do its job to make sure that young, as infants, have a place to go to learn and get a taste of learning and feel safe and build relationships with teachers. Pre-K is so important. Education is a big, big, big part of this. Then there's good paying jobs in communities where you have a lot of people that need good paying jobs and they don't feel like they've got economic upside and economic security. So we need to take steps so that we're investing proactively. There's a lot of money that can be made in communities that are being overlooked. So the point is that you can invest, it can be profitable not only for the investors, but profitable for the workers and their families. Then what follows that is transportation, what follows that is infrastructure. And so there's an awful lot that the state can do. Those things all factor into crime. What the state doesn't do is individual police force work. However, the state contributes a lot, or shall I say the state can or can't, depending on their political will, be a good partner to local government. Now, I'm very, very critical of Dan Patrick and the state government because we are not good partners with our local city and county officials. They have declared war on counties. They have declared war on cities. Our city leaders are trying to keep our streets safe. Our county leaders are trying to keep our streets safe. They're trying to do it in a way that builds trust in communities, which is hard. Why isn't the state helping them? Why is the state not getting behind them and helping them and supporting them financially and with policies that make sense locally? I trust our local leaders, and the state is not a good partner in these things. So there's an awful lot that the state can do, and there's an awful lot that Dan Patrick knows won't do and aren't do. And then finally, they take actions that law enforcement say, don't do it. And there's plenty of examples that I can think of, but the one that comes immediately to mind is canceling permit to carry. That you had law enforcement on the steps of the Capitol saying to Dan Patrick, don't do this. We have a problem on our hands. You're throwing gasoline on a fire because you're pandering to that 15%. So a lot of it has to do with mindset. The lieutenant governor and the state that understands there's a crime problem spends the time recognizing what really drives that, partnering effectively with local government, doing its job That's what we need. That's what our top leaders don't do.
That
Refuse
is
to do.
excellent. It is amazing because we've spoken a whole lot thus far about what you intend to do, the topics that you're going to cover as Lieutenant Governor, which I think is very important. And the only time Dan Patrick's name comes up is when, well, I mean, he should have done XYZ, which he didn't. I mean, it's amazing how one of his major issues now is to take tenure away from professors. And you've made a statement to the Dallas News as well as to the Texas Tribune. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, so the background is, Dan Patrick is not a free speech lieutenant governor. He wants to dictate terms as to what could be taught in the classroom. I am very, very much against that, particularly as it relates to history. We have a lot to be proud of in this country. We should celebrate our success. We've made a lot of mistakes in this country. We should learn from them. We should teach history honestly, comprehensively, respectfully, but thoroughly. Dan Patrick is off on some tear that's inconsistent with freedom of speech, and he's creating a war. And he created war in our public schools, and now he's creating war in our great universities. The professors wisely pushed back, and so he said, "All right, we're gonna cancel tenure. Tenure's not perfect. Tenure can be improved. We all understand that we have issues related to universities and tenure, but you don't just cancel it, because we will have a brain drain from our great universities like the state has never seen. The best and the brightest will leave our state. It'll have a tremendous impact on our great universities. It will therefore have a derivative impact on industries that thrive on the relationship between their industry and our universities. It'll be a devastating impact on our state. And the fact that Dan Patrick would actually advance that out of personal pique is not rational at all."
The reason I wanted to ask that as one of my last questions is because exactly that. Whenever you make decisions, these decisions can have impacts that way exceed the narrative, way exceed that little pet peeve that you're talking about. Well, the last question I always ask everybody, Mike, is tell me something that you wish I had asked you that I didn't.
Okay, well, yes, you didn't ask about public education.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have so many other things that are on our minds. And as you know, Egberto, because we've known each other for a long time, my decision to run in the first instance, many years ago, was to be the undisputed champion for public education, because that's where the students are. And we've got some schools that are very, very successful, and we got some schools that need our help. And we know that there's racial bias in this. You didn't ask about education because we have so many other things to distract us. But I know when I get on the stump, I start there, because I am not a glib and transient politician looking for way. I am devoted to education. If we don't get education right, we're not going to get anything right. And we have a moral obligation to every single little boy and girl, regardless of the community they're born in, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of their race, their religion. We have an obligation to every little boy and girl in this state to give them a shot at success and to be good citizens, and it starts with education.
Mike Collier, the next Lieutenant Governor of Texas. Thank you. In fact, thank you so kindly for bringing up education, which I should have asked. But you know what? That proves that you will do the job, because whether we remember to ask it or not, whether we know that it's needed or not, you're right there. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
As always, Egberto, great to see you. Thank you.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Well, you know what time it is. It's time for me to go ahead and say, please get my books. Please do.
Egberto Willies, as host of Politics Done Right, a progressive radio media show on Pacifica Network's KPFT 90.1 FM Houston that engages all ideologies. I found that our political angst isn't mostly ideological. There is a well-designed effort by many in power to control us. If we are at each other's throats, we are less likely to demand our economic and local wishes. In that light, I wrote 3 books. I wrote the first one titled, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom, to describe the entire economy in a manner we can all understand. It highlights why it was designed to pill for most as it empowers a few, the chosen. The second book, titled It's Worth It: How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors. Take it to the next level. After understanding how the system pilfers, it is incumbent that we can speak to our peers to empower a change. The third book, How to Make America Utopia: Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, gives us a place to land. After learning about our economy that is dysfunctional for most and learning how to engage the other side, we point out what would make an economy that works for all. Each book stands on its own, but together they provide the full picture. Please consider getting one or more. You will undoubtedly learn, be entertained, and help us continue the mission with our blogs, articles, videos, and books.
Well, folks, please do. You can actually pick up the book at politicsdoneright.com/books. Maybe I could get that on the screen sometime. Politics Done Right. Let's see. politicsdoneright.com/books. Let's see if I can put it there. Voila. Where are you? Okay. I guess I have to do it the old-fashioned way. politicsdoneright.com/books. politicsdoneright.com/books is where you will find the books. You can also click, if you're on YouTube right now, click that join button. Please become a part of our PDR posse by supporting the program. We need all the support we can get to make sure we can come out here and continue telling the truth. Politics Done Right. If you don't see that join button on your YouTube screen, please go ahead and go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube, politicsdoneright.com/YouTube, and I'm about to put that on the screen, politicsdoneright.youtube right there. Alternatively, you can support us on our Patreon, politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. Patreon is spelled Patreon, Patreon, and that's a link there, politicsdoneright.com/Patreon. And of course, we all take PayPal, politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. If you have the wherewithal to provide support to ensure we can continue to move this message, you can see we bring you good interviews, we bring you what's going to be happening, etc., etc., etc. Please provide us support at politicsdoneright.com/PayPal, politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. And there is a store. We have a lot of new products in our store. We have new cups, new t-shirts, new hoodies, all that good stuff. Just go to politicsdoneright.com/store, politicsdoneright.com/store. And last but not least, if you can't deal with all these links that we have to support us, we have one place where we have all of the links, and that is politicsdoneright.com/support. politicsdoneright.com/support. All right, folks, so let's continue. Let me, before I go to the other video, let me see. Rose Williams, I didn't know about hemp batteries. Rose says, hemp batteries perform better than lithium and more eco-friendly and are renewable. Hemp is the non-psychoactive variety of cannabis sativa plants. Among other properties, hemp fiber can be easily transformed into carbon nanosheets, which can store a ton of energy for very little mass and can operate at various temperatures. I think you gave a link. I got to look for that link. I had never heard of that before. E2247, welcome aboard. He says, the military-industrial complex and our culture, a webinar presented last night. Thank you, my brother. Nanette Birdsmith said, amen to, I guess, to what brother Mike Collier had to say. I love Mike. Mike is going to make a hell of a lieutenant governor when he wins and take over Texas. He will be the most important office in Texas. The lieutenant governor is more powerful in Texas than is the governor, as he's the one who dictates policy. He's the one who dictates what makes it onto the floor, what becomes law. It cannot happen without the lieutenant governor. So we are lucky to have Mike Collier as someone who is running, and you guys know him. Nanette Birdsmith says, great interview. Let's clone him. I know he is that good. He is, and you know, what you see there is what you really get. That is the real Mike Collier. All right, good interview. How about getting some people going against Lina Hidalgo? Why would I do that? Again, this program is to move us forward, right? That's what we do. And I think currently in our state, the person that's going to continue to move us forward as far as judge is concerned is absolutely going to be Lina Hidalgo. Lina Hidalgo has the moxie. She is young. She thinks forward. She doesn't have the pettiness that a lot of other folks have. And she will run rings around every single Republican that is running right now to take that position. Period. Carl Cox says, I did say something. There are three somethings, that is. Carl Cox, let me see what you said. You said you did say something. Carl Cox said, the Republican-controlled states have passed bills that will allow the Republicans to throw out votes at the local, state, and federal level, so America becomes a neocon Republican one-party country. Did you say something else? Oh, and Tom said something too. Tom C. says, Trump said Putin is a genius for declaring parts of Ukraine independent countries and sending in Russian troops as peacekeepers. Putin is an evil genius who wants to restore the evil Soviet empire. I agree. And Carl Cox also says, right-wing media lies through its teeth. Fascist propagandist news. AVQ had one for Eric. He says, willful ignorance, Eric. Eric, I love you, but that is true. You choose many times not to. You cloak thinking differently or wanting to have an opinion. You use that all of the times when somebody points out a fact to you. Well, once a fact is pointed out, it trumps opinion. Remember that. When we're dealing with facts versus opinion, facts trump opinion every single time. So if you come to us and say, well, I feel like we can't, when you say this, Eric, let me give an example. If you say, I feel that we could not, it is my opinion that we could not have a system that's run on renewable energy. And I give you a factual proposition that says there is enough renewable technology out there right now for us to get off of nuclear, for us to get off of oil in the next 20 years. And you say, my opinion is we can't. And I tell you factually, the resources are there currently to do just that. I'm not going to argue about it, right? Because fact trumps opinion. Daniel Edo says, LOL, of course. Lena is a Marxist leftist. Egberto is a reliable vote for any Marxist leftist. If Nina is a Marxist leftist, she still got my vote. And you know what? I don't even think you guys understand what those terms mean when you use them. Eric Hayes says, I'm not cloaking anything except that I see all the time. You have nothing factual about it. Where is your place? Again, we give you the place. We break it down into joules. We break it down into if the wind blows at this speed, and we build this number of windmills, and we build this amount of wave energy devices, and we dam up this amount of rivers, which we don't need to do a lot of anymore. And if we also create a good back-end store, there is enough to do it. The numbers tell you it's there. That's all I need to say. That's all I need to say. You can choose to look it up or not. That's your choice. Anyhow, let's go ahead and play our last video of the day. Let me set it up. Recently, Mitch McConnell was asked, hey guys, if the Republicans win the House and the Senate, what are your plans? What do you plan to do for the American people? Right? Mitch McConnell says, I'll tell you that when we win. And the reason he will tell you that when they win, if they were to win, is because they don't have anything to offer. They don't have anything that Americans really, really want. So they don't dare tell you what they want, because if America finds out what they're all about, there is no way in this living hell that they would ever, ever win. They have, again, no policy that supports the middle class, no policy that supports the poor, no policy that moves people forward. They don't. You name me one, I give you $1 million. Anyway, but Rick Scott, the quarter billionaire, Rick Scott is going to put out 11 points with over 128 options to show that we Republicans stand for something. And my God, he gave every Democrat the template to use to beat the Republicans. And you know what? If they don't use it effectively, starting immediately, that would be malpractice to the core. So what I want you guys to do is listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Mitch McConnell is, in the words of Washington Post columnist Jennifer Rubin, quote, ruthless, cynical, and power hungry, but he is not dumb.
If Republicans take back control of Congress after the midterms, what would be your agenda?
That is a very good question, and I'll let you know when we take it back.
McConnell's official position is that Republicans have no official positions. He thinks that's the best way for Republicans to win back the Senate. First-term Republican Senator Rick Scott of Florida is a very rich man with a net worth over $250 million, and Republicans believe that matters of money should be left to very rich men. And so Rick Scott has been given the job of chairman of the National Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee. That is really a fundraising job. You're supposed to just help senators raise money for their reelection campaigns. You are not supposed to think. Rick Scott apparently did not get that memo. And so today he decided to change the McConnell policy of having no policies to 11 new campaign policies for Republican Senate candidates. Because Rick Scott is not good at thinking, he has given Republicans the single stupidest platform anyone has ever put in writing, including massive tax increases on most Americans, including senior citizens living on Social Security, and nonsense like, quote, finish building the wall and name it after President Donald Trump. Rick Scott told Politico, I'm doing it because I'm a business guy and I believe in plans. Joining us now is David Plouffe, former campaign manager and White House senior advisor to President Obama. And David, this does not look like something the Republicans should be running on. Should Democrats be using it running against Republicans?
Oh, you have to, Lawrence. I mean, it was epic political malpractice, but it is what he and most Republicans today believe. And I have learned that political arguments have to be believable. So let's back to 2012. You might recall Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan ran around the country accusing Barack Obama of wanting to destroy Medicare. Well, voters might have thought a lot of things about Barack Obama. They didn't think he was going to gouge Medicare. So this is believable that Republicans, if they take over, would raise taxes on working people. And so what McConnell wants to do is play four corners. To use a Kentucky basketball saying, he likes his position and he wants to just have the Democrats basically be on trial and have it be a referendum. Democrats now have a pretty compelling argument on economic policy. They've stated, Rick Scott, said very clearly, they're going to raise taxes on almost every working American and every senior citizen on Social Security and shower the wealthiest people and corporations with big tax cuts. Education plan, ban books, stop teaching history because they don't think our kids can handle the truth. Their foreign policy plan, for a lot of them anyway, is to basically snuggle up to Vladimir Putin and give the middle finger to our allies. Their healthcare plan is to make it harder and more expensive to get healthcare. There's a lot you can do with it. So Democratic candidates are going to have to take that fight to the voters. So change. That question of Republicans want is we should get change. Right direction is not good. We've dealt with the pandemic. You've got to basically focus people and say, be very, very careful, because if they get power, here's what they're going to do.
If they get power, that is what they're going to do. Remember that. And that's what every single Republican, or rather Democrat, has to remember. Republicans intend to raise that. And, for those who say, oh, really? Are they going to do that? Yeah, you know what they said? Everybody needs skin in the game. They don't realize that we all pay taxes. Even those that the people, I remember Romney said, 47% of these folks are the only ones who pay tax or whatever, something to that effect. Well, you forget one thing, and that is we all pay Social Security taxes and many other taxes that even the wealthy don't pay. So we have something to run on. I think Rick Scott just did the Democrats a big favor. Now it's time for Democrats to weaponize the truth as stated by Rick Scott and the Republicans. And I would tie what Rick Scott did to what Mitch McConnell say. You say it's and just the way that Lawrence O'Donnell did it. What Mitch McConnell says, he's not going to tell you what he's going to do for you until he wins the election. And Rick Scott tells you what he's going to do if they win the election One tells the truth, one hides the truth. But now we have the truth. And that is what we have to come with, folks. That is what we have to come with. Well, look, we are at the end of the program. I want to thank everybody for showing up. I want to ask everybody again to remember to support us at politicsdoneright.com/support. That is where we'll go. Politicsdoneright.com/support is where you can find all the encompassing ways to support us. But you can support us right now by, if you're on YouTube, just click that join button. Or if you are on Facebook, you can also join us on Facebook by clicking the subscribe button on Facebook or become a member on Facebook. There are a lot of different ways that you can support our program. We cannot do this without you. We need independent media out there telling the truth, and we can only do that with your support. Thank you so kindly for having been there with me. You know how I end this baby. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.